African YouTubers, for me, I think, work the hardest and are paid the least.
Why doesn't YouTube pay African YouTubers as much as they pay YouTubers from the West and everywhere else? It's a good question. It's a really good question. I saw a video by the African YouTuber Jessica Os, and I think she's a Ghanaian YouTuber, makes very interesting videos, and she's got a lot of followers. She's got a big following, 500K followers. And she talked about how much money she makes on YouTube. There are a few components to why African YouTubers don't earn as much as American YouTubers or British YouTubers or YouTubers from anywhere else. And it comes down to one thing. So just so you could get some backstory, YouTubers can earn as much money as they want to based on if they, sell their own products. They control how much money their products cost, what they sell, etc. So on YouTube, people could use YouTube as a tool to make money. It's infinite how much money they can make. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about YouTube monetizing creators. And when it comes down to it, there are a few ways that YouTube monetizes you. One of them is, or like, let's say about 3 ways that I know of that YouTube monetizes you. First of all, everyone knows about AdSense. Second one is like subscriptions. Like when you see those channels that say join, you can actually sign up to their channel and pay them on a monthly basis. So subscriptions is the other one. Then the other way that YouTube monetizes you is through live chats. So like super chats. So people can pay you money when you're live, people can pay you money, right? So those are the way that YouTube monetizes creators. But here's the thing. Why is it that African YouTubers don't make more money, especially on AdSense?
But if people from Africa, Ghana, wherever, South Africa, are watching your videos, you're not going to be making a lot of money off it.
And it comes down to the fact that African advertisers aren't paying top dollar for advertising, right? Everything is relative. Everything is relative. And everything has to do with what your market will pay for, right? And that's how people make money. It's about what does the market say that they're going to pay. And because of just like the cost of living in Nigeria, advertisers can't make that much money because it's based on their market. So they're only going to be able to pay have a certain amount of money dedicated to their advertising budgets, right? This is why advertisers are unable to pay so much money for YouTube ads, especially African advertisers. But here's the thing, right? So African YouTubers, because a lot of them tap into African audiences, they're going to get paid what they're, based on where their audiences are located. So that's the thing. And when it comes down to it, when you look at someone like Jess O, she talks about her being different because she has her audience, even though she's based in Ghana, a lot of her audience are watching from the US. And when the US audience are watching, they're seeing US ads, and US advertisers pay top dollar for their ads. So therefore, YouTubers in the US or YouTubers that reach a US audience are able to make more money. Now, the reason I believe that African YouTubers aren't able to tap into most African YouTubers aren't able to tap into a US audience or an international audience comes down to language, comes down to accents. When you look at Jess O or Jessica O, she has a very universal accent.
By the end of this video, you would realize just how starting your YouTube channel
And she's also a trained voiceover artist and probably a broadcaster. She says she's a broadcaster. I think she sounds like she works on a news network or something. So she has a very strong voice, very strong way of speaking. She's trained for this, and she has a very universal accent. So this allows her to tap into audiences from all over the world. And unfortunately, the way the world is, unless you have an American accent, or an accent that's understood globally, because America has really globalized the English language. Like, as much as like English comes from the UK, America gets credit for it because America was able to dominate the world through media and show a universal voice when it comes to the English, right? The American accent has more market value than any other accent, even a British one. But British accents are still accepted. South African accents are accepted. Even Australian accents are accepted. Kenyan accents, because a Kenyan accent is understood, you know, when America, it's funny because like whenever like you see an African on television, they always have like a Kenyan sounding accent, and that's the accent that they accept for international appeal. But when it comes down to it, when you look at like some of these like YouTubers, especially in West Africa, their accents are very, even though like Nollywood is huge and it's the biggest, you know, I think it's the second biggest movie industry in the world in terms of output, even though it's huge and it's a huge market, the accent is just so distinct that it's not universal and people just don't understand it. And this is what limits African YouTubers, especially West African ones, from reaching an international audience. It's the accent. And Jessica O has a very trained, or she has a very international and universal accent, which gives her access to that pool. And unfortunately, unless people have access to that pool, it's going to be difficult for them to be able to monetize. And that's just, it's almost like geographic racism in a way, but it just is the way the world works, unfortunately. But here's the thing. I am not in any way saying that African YouTubers should change their accents and start doing what we call fun air by force. If you can't do the accent, don't do it, because you're going to sound ridiculous. Be authentic to yourself. But what I will say is something that you should look into is getting voice lessons and working on your diction and working on the way that you speak. And perhaps you can get to a place where you don't necessarily have an American accent. You could still have a Nigerian accent, but you're just so well spoken because you're professionally trained that you're able to be heard and understood universally. And that's really the key, being understood universally. Another way you could do it is you could actually pay somebody like to dub your videos in an American accent, which can potentially give you access to an American pool. Because I saw like a Russian, people that speak different languages do this. I saw a Russian YouTuber. He has like crazy views on his Russian channel, but also his English channel has very substantial views, and the English channel is dubbed, but it still has substantial views. So that's another way to look at it, right? To do that, get your stuff dubbed. But that's just monetization. I think the first thing you have to figure out as a YouTuber is how to get views, right? Once you've solved that and gotten yourself the right visibility, then you can start looking at how to monetize. So that's one way to go about it. Another thing is just to sell products to your audience. And unfortunately, when you're tapping into an African audience, you're going to be limited in terms of how much you can actually, it's not just African. It's like if you're selling to people in South America too, or you're selling to economies that just, developing economies, the people are just not going to be able to afford. Most of the people are not even online, let alone afford to buy things online. So that's going to be difficult for you to figure out, but you have to crack that code. But I will say, look into the other ways and look at how you can tap into this pool by getting voice lessons. And you can do that on Udemy. You could go to Udemy, you could go to Skillshare, you could go and learn, diction and voice lessons to really help you become a strong speaker so that you can be heard and understood universally. So unfortunately, that is just the case. African YouTubers don't get paid as much because African YouTubers reach African audiences. And unfortunately, in a lot of African countries, they're mainly developing, and there's just not that much capital being circulating, especially for entertainment purposes, or even just like people spending money online generally. So that's where you're going to have a hurdle, but there are always ways around it. So just figure out a solution for yourself. It's unfortunate the world is built, there's geographic racism going on, unfortunately, but it's just the way the world works, unfortunately. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the above. My name is Kenim, and see you next time. A peace.